Hello everyone! In this video, I want to explain how I want to use this channel to help you as a game developer or artist. Pierogigon Games. First, a little bit about me. I've spent the last 8 years practicing my skills in education in different contexts. First, I worked as a math tutor during my undergraduate education. Then, I became a high school math teacher. That type of job was not for me, so I spent the next 2 years in Dreams creating games. And Dreams was a little creative game on the PlayStation, and I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, also getting my master's degree. What I didn't realize was making those little games on Dreams had a huge impact on me. I realized that I want to do game development as a big part of my life, and it's really important to me. As part of this creative community around Dreams on Twitch, I got to see that people really struggle making games. Even in a creative space that was literally designed to be a video game, so fun and intuitive, people still really struggled. And of course, these struggles aren't exclusive to Dreams. Most projects are abandoned, and I think it's too easy to just default to reasons like I wasn't fun anymore or I wasn't motivated. In the case of Dreams, people make games just because it's fun. So where does the fun go? This last year, I did my master's degree research, and I focused it on game development. I wanted to help solo game developers work on their projects and still have fun working on their projects, not getting lost in the details. I came up with the strategies, and I called them iterative development, and we'll talk more about that later in the video. The process of doing this master's degree research had me looking at game development from different angles, in ways that I wasn't used to. I realized that success for a developer isn't really completely related to software experience and ability to use these programs. Those things are important, but design and strategy is also just as important. And I honestly don't see much of that being talked about, and that's what I want to do on this channel. On this channel, I plan to help you improve your game development process by looking at 3 different angles of game development. Number 1 is practical abilities, number 2 is project management, and number 3 is purpose and inspiration. And my view is that if we nourish these 3 areas, over time, you really can achieve your goals and improve as a developer. And sure, that all sounds nice, but how do we actually go about improving these things? First, I want to explain the categories, and then I'll talk about what YouTube content already exists for these categories, and then I'll talk about how specifically this channel will provide content to help you with these 3 categories. First, let's talk about practical game development content. Practical game development is by far the most abundant and high-quality content on YouTube. Some of my personal favorites are Acerola, who does video game graphics with a focus on optimization, Nonsensical 2D, who does visual design in games, Freya, who does applied math in games, and there's Blenderbox, who does Blender tutorials, but they have a really good focus on simplicity and practicality for their viewers. And the quality of this content seems to be increasing as well. As YouTube game development grows and big figures like Brackeys, who do amazing educational content, return to help with Godot, it seems like the future is bright for practical abilities content. And while all this content is incredibly valuable and really helpful, it's clear to me that most of the people making these types of videos, with very few exceptions, are not trained in education. It's a foundational concept of education that you learn less just by watching and listening, and you learn a lot more by actually participating. Educational content should be actionable, meaning you can watch it and apply it straight away to what you're working on. And most of game development content doesn't meet this most basic of criteria, or it's really inconvenient to try and follow along with a lot of the tutorials. I wonder how many of you watching have had the experience of trying to follow along with a do-it-yourself type of video, where you're making your first game or you're making a donut. This type of content really teaches you a lot and you learn a lot, but if you're like me, it's really hard to motivate myself to do things like that. I've done them before and I've learned a lot from them, but I feel like I cannot apply that information straight away to what I'm working on. I have to follow along and make this exact replica of whatever the person is making in their video. Another foundational concept of education is that it is individualized. People learn what they care about, and the less they care, the less they learn, no matter who they are. I find it a waste that as game developers, we're so passionate about our projects, but every time we try to engage with educational content, it's all completely detracted and separated from everything that we're trying to do on our own projects. That's such a huge motivator, and we're completely ignoring it in most of the content that's on YouTube. And to make things even harder, especially for beginners, a lot of these practical content is made by people who are highly skilled in their programs. They just assume that you're supposed to know certain things. This is inevitable. Even if you're really good at compensating for this and you're really good at making educational content, things will fall through the cracks. In education, we use peer to peer interactions because people learn better from people who are at similar skill levels to them. The communication is just better. On this channel, I hope that my content will address all these problems that I've talked about with practical content on YouTube right now. I want my content to be actionable and individualized so that you can apply what you're learning to whatever you're doing in your own projects. I also want to make my content as beginner friendly as possible. I'm also quite a beginner in most of the programs that I'll be talking about, so that should help. Eventually, I know I'll become more advanced. So that's why, in the meantime, I want to develop a community through my live streams so that we can have more peer to peer interactions. At least, even after I become more proficient in these programs, I can create a community, a space where people can work together. And if you're interested in joining that community, you can find a link to the Discord below. I plan to create 3 types of practical content. Number 1 is going to be shorts that show things that blew my mind when I was learning programs. Things like beveling in Edge or using dynamic topology. Things like what a center container is and how I really like to use it. Things that really changed my workflow as a beginner. The second type of content that I want to do are medium length videos that are time-lapse videos where I explain how I engaged with whatever creative process, maybe it's making a 3D model or making a game, and what pivotal moments happened during the creation process so that you can learn from my own experiences. And finally, I'll do devlog live streams. My hope is that these live streams will help me develop a community where we can just hang out, do whatever I'm working on, and develop a community where we can share our revelations, things that we're learning, uh, and stuff like that. And I know that I don't really have all the answers when it comes to making my content individualized, actionable, and beginner friendly. But I'm hoping through community building and reflection, we can make this channel better and better. The second type of content that I want to make is around project planning and how I can help you with project planning. Game companies use a variety of different models and they throw around concepts like Agile and Scrum and they have all their lingo. And the reason for that is because design is a really important part of game development. But everyday people and people on YouTube don't really talk much about this. There's some videos that talk about what game industry practices are, but there's not very much content that's targeted towards a solo developer and avoiding development hell. There's some videos that specifically mention development hell, but there isn't really like a methodology, a theory on how can you avoid it. Well, I did my master's research on that, and I'd like to share that with you. In my master's degree research, I reviewed a bunch of literature about design strategies and principles, and then I tried to apply them to game development. I ended up coming with 3 phases that loop on each other to create a kind of system that you can continually cycle through to not get lost. The first is to make a minimum viable product. The second is to know when to stop creating when and how to get feedback. And the third is how to use that feedback to change your plans for what you're going to do next, so that you're always doing what is most helpful to the project and what is most exciting and inspirational for you to work on. This is my hope that game development can be more fun using these strategies. I can't wait to talk more about these strategies and principles, and that'll come in future videos. My videos aimed at project planning will come in three forms. The first one will be medium-length videos that explain the three phases of the iterative development strategies that I came up with in my research. The second will be medium-length videos that looks at specific research and some of the fascinating ideas that they come up with in some of these papers, talking about them and then reflecting on what they mean for a beginner solo game developer. And finally, I want to make some shorts that will pose reflective kind of questions. They'll show game development stories and the common problems people have when making games, and then kind of give an idea of, well, maybe they could have done this better. Hopefully, people can reflect on how they approach these things, and then maybe try some new things. The final type of content that I want to make is around purpose and inspiration. Another thing that I think is really important as a game developer is to find your clarity of purpose and inspiration. Games are art, and I think that we often box ourselves into this idea of games have to be fun. But I actually reject that idea. I don't think that games necessarily have to be fun, they just have to be meaningful for the player in every moment. I think entertainment is a lot more complex and varied than just this idea of fun. I think that also applies to games. So I want to use this type of content to look at games more deeply and think about the different ways that as developers we can create entertainment without boxing ourselves into an idea of fun. As far as what YouTube already has to offer in this arena of analyzing games deeper, there are a lot of videos that talks about the meaning of games. Most of them are in the video essay format, and I want to do a similar but slightly different approach to that. First of all, most of these analyses don't really focus from a game developer perspective, so I want to bring that into it. And I also want to create like a holistic, procedural way that's very clear and concrete of analyzing games and the way that they entertain. I'll talk more about that in later videos, and as I'm creating videos that analyze these games, I think I'll have a clearer image in my head of exactly the categories and structure of my framework for uh, analyzing the games. So I'm really excited to develop that as I continue this channel. I plan to create two types of videos that center around purpose and inspiration. First, I want to make medium to long videos that take a look at one game and they explain and analyze the ways in which that game creates entertainment and meaning. And secondly, I want to make videos talking about my own games that I'm making and how I intend to create meaning and entertainment throughout those games. And who knows, maybe my content strategy will completely change over time and things will be completely different. However, I think no matter what happens, it'll be about game development, and it can only get better if it's going to change. So don't forget to subscribe for more content, and I hope that this content really helps you. Thanks for watching.